What's going on, everybody? It's your old friend, Professor Withrow here, coming at you once again with Math 122 Trigonometry here at ECA, now reborn on the internet and into our new reality. I think I was mentioning to most of you prior to spring break that I think it's entirely probable that your grandchildren will someday be asking you questions on what this time period was like, probably as part of some school assignment that involves interviewing you. This is a very, very unusual situation. The last time we had a pandemic of this level, I'm sure most of you know, is the influenza outbreak shortly after World War I. That was in 1918, more than 100 years prior to now. And so that's something that not even your oldest grandparents probably can recall. And so this is new for all of us. It's new just as much for instructors and administrators as it is for you. We've been scrambling, working very, very hard. I'm sorry that I haven't been as forthcoming with information and communicative with you as perhaps some of the other instructors. Please know that that's because I've been going through a lot of information. I'm doing this very, very much for the first time. I have put videos on YouTube before, but this is the first time I've ever done a class online, and so it's especially challenging, quite honestly, for an instructor who's new to a new school, actually new to two different schools, because I'm doing this for two different schools, and a person who is a first-year teacher teaching some classes for the first time, which means coming up with information for the first time. I don't have that worksheet from 10 years ago that still works really, really well with students. I'm having to put together stuff really for the first time every single time. And so I'm sorry about how quiet I've been. That's not an indication of how much I care. It's actually an indication that I've been working very, very hard to get some things ready for you. And now I'm finally able to show you what it is that we're going to be doing for the next few weeks so that we can get you set up with a good solid foundation with trigonometry here as we go forward with this class here. First of all, I'm kind of playing this video here in the upper right. This is something from a musical that came out many years ago now, called High School Musical. The number that they're performing right now is "We're All in This Together," and that's actually the point of this slide here. This is something that I want us to be able to work together on. Please know that this is it's important that I keep in contact with you, you keep in contact with me. And so as you can see here, I'm actually posting my schedule of me being online. I'm going to be online and available through Zoom. You can see my Zoom link just above my head, sort of over here. And you can see that I will be available on this Zoom link really from 8 o'clock until noon, and then from 1 to 2 in the afternoon, Monday through Friday. That's there. I'm available there for you to be answering and addressing any questions that you've got or any concerns that you have about the class. Please stay in touch with me. Please talk to me as we're going through this. That's the challenge of being online here. The temptation is to go quiet, to shut down and detach yourself from school. That's why a lot of administrators right now and teachers are really cringing, and they're quite frankly worried that you're going to shut down like that. So we're doing some things to try and keep that from happening, because that's not a reflection on you. That's just what human beings usually do when they have to work remotely on some things. The danger is always that quality goes down, that consistent effort goes down, and it really requires you, quite honestly, to rise to a challenge of adulthood that has come earlier than some previous generations. I didn't have to rise to the level of adulthood in high school the way that you're having to do right now with an online class. You're really getting a good solid taste right now of what it is to be a college student. If you talk to most college students and ask them what was the major shock in going from high school to college, was it academic difficulty or was it the lifestyle? They'll say most often that it wasn't so much the academic difficulty. Yeah, there was an increase with that, but most significantly what they will tell you is that it was a big shock in going from one lifestyle to another. Now you're pretty much acting as adults right now. You're setting your own schedule. You're getting up in the morning not because that's you're getting up in the morning as a college student, not because your mom or dad is getting you up, but because you have responsibilities to perform, and you're setting yourself a schedule to make those things happen. And so we're actually going to talk about that a little bit more with some of the slides that I have available to you. And so I'm setting hopefully a little bit of an example here up, showing you my schedule that I'll have available most of the time. I have occasional doctor's appointments and things like that where I have to step out for a little bit. But as you can see here, also I teach at Front Range Community College in Fort Collins as well, and that's being scheduled 2 to 4 Monday through Friday. So I have to be available for them. Actually, they're using a different online tool known as WebEx. Here's the long-term schedule that we've put together. I've actually had to, in response to our lost week, I've had to remove some things from the schedule. I've gotten some guidance on what are the things that are really most important and what are the things that are a little bit more expendable. And so I've done that and come up with this schedule here. It's actually pretty ambitious. We're going through one section every 2 days. That means that you'll have an assignment that's due basically every other class period. And so I think that because we've spent so much time on chapter 1 and the beginning of chapter 2, I think that's going to give us a solid foundation now so that we can speed through some of these other things a little bit more rapidly. We still have 2 exams left to go, exam 3 and exam 4, and then we've got our final taking place at the same time. Here's how we're going to be doing each one of these new modules. Basically, the information that I've gotten and the scientific data that's come from this has basically said the worst thing that I can do is to give you a bunch of assignments, a bunch of projects, and basically have them all due on Sunday night at midnight, and a bunch of stuff is due all at once there. And what they've found through historic analysis is that when instructors online do that, what happens is that people tend to sort of ignore the work that they have to do for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They start to think about it a little bit on Thursday, maybe they'll do a little bit on Friday and Saturday, and then Sunday night they're absolutely they're just panicking, quite frankly, and trying to get a bunch of stuff done very, very quickly. And when that happens, the quality of the learning goes down, the quality of the work goes down, and it's just not a good way to learn, especially with math. The big thing with math is that you have to be practicing it on a regular basis. Math is very, very much like going to the gym in that you have to be coming at it consistently. Doing the night before cram just doesn't work in math, and that tends to be the reason why a lot of people don't do well in math. It's not because of intelligence, it's because of the specific study skills that require a little bit more daily consistent effort, I think, than some other classes as well. Not to say that other classes are not difficult, they are difficult, but there's a special routine that needs to take place in order to learn math effectively, and it's not something that many students are successful at pulling off. And so what I'm doing here is to make it so that I'm giving you little bits of stuff that's due within 2 class period blocks. And so I'll be creating these little folders on D2L, these little modules that are on D2L. This is actually from a previous class that I had before, but the title of the module will be the date that everything is due, and you're going to have basically a to-do list of things to go through here. It'll be a video to watch. Once the video is done, I give you a little bit of a quiz. If you've seen the video, if you've done the problems, the quiz should be very, very easy. It's just basically what was the answer to problem 7 and what was the answer to problem 4, that kind of stuff. So it's just basically a check for me to make sure that you've actually done the work and gone online and watched the video and done the work there. And then you're going to have some stuff to do for an upcoming class period, and then there's an assignment that's due on the night at midnight of the date that you see here. So all of that stuff is due at that time, and we're just going to break it up into small chunks so that you're doing this on a consistent basis. It's my best way that I know how to facilitate good learning for you and facilitate success in this class. So here's kind of the routine that you're going to be getting into here. For each one of the modules that you're going to be going through, and each module is basically a section in the textbook. Like, the current module that we're on right now is verifying trigonometric identities, and so we'll be working on that. And so there's the video with the activity sheet and the quiz that prepares you for the class discussion that we're going to be having, and then you start on the homework, and the homework will be made available on D2L just like it did before, but I'm actually going to be adding something to the homework now. I'm getting not particularly in your class, but in some classes I'm getting a little suspicious that some students are not actually doing the homework. I don't know if they're copying down the right answers or doing somebody else's work. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody or anything whatsoever, but suffice it to say, I'm concerned enough about that basically when you're turning in your homework the night after this on day 2, you're also going to have to do what's called a homework quiz. And essentially what you have to do is the homework will be consisting of odd problems, but it will also consist of up to 4 even problems as well that you'll have to do, for which you're not provided what the answers are. And you have to give me what those answers are to those 4 homework problems with an online Google form that will allow me to track exactly how well you're doing as far as actually getting those homeworks done. So it's just a quiz in which you have to actually enter in for 4 problems, up to 4 problems, what the answers were to the homework, and that'll help me out in troubleshooting how well you all are doing. And then that gets you ready for the next following day here, in which you've got a video with an activity sheet and a quiz for the video. All of this again is due at day 2, but you really want to make sure that that video is done before you go to the next class discussion, because it's going to be dependent upon you having seen this video. And so the best routine would be to be preparing for these class discussions that we have, as well as to make sure that all of your homework is in by the due date listed on the module. And it's due, again, midnight on the day that's listed there on the module. I'm sure I'm not the only instructor who's suggesting that you do this. This is an example of a daily planner that I just downloaded this actually off of Pinterest. It's not anything special whatsoever. You can come up with your own. Actually, what I did, and I did this in high school and actually even in junior high, I was a bit of a nerd. I listed basically all of my classes at the end of each day, and underneath each class I listed, kind of made a to-do list of all the homework that I had to do for that class for the next day. And sometimes there were long-term projects. I had to also list those as well, just to kind of remind myself that those things were still things to consider. Something like that is to show here that you'll want to create a kind of schedule for yourself, a routine, so to speak, much like what I showed you about my routine that I'm having online here. So make it so that, I mean, obviously don't schedule things for 12 midnight and 1 in the morning and 2 in the morning and so on and so forth, but so for 8 o'clock in the morning up to 5 or 6, have some things scheduled for yourself there. Maybe you've got a couple of evening slots there for homework as well. So make it so that you've got a good solid schedule there, because you know how it is just as much as I do. Your friends give you a call, let's go, let's watch this thing on Netflix, on Hulu, on whatever it is, and you start to binge watch something, and suddenly you're off schedule. And the more that you do that, the more opportunities there are for you to kind of fall off the ship, so to speak, and to make it so that things are not going to go very well for you. Having said that, you'll want to make sure that you do schedule some time for yourself as you're going through, as you're creating these schedules, these daily schedules for yourself. Have a daily routine and include these things in addition to school and classwork. Family time. I know family is very, very important to me as well as to you. Certainly there will be chores and taking care of little brothers, little sisters, and cousins and all those kinds of things. That's great. Some hobby time for yourself. Make sure that you get some exercise. Our culture does not teach this very well at all. We tend to think of our bodies as just something to get our brains to the next class period or get our brains to the next meeting, so to speak. We don't yet realize that, as it turns out, the mind and body are very, very much connected. a great way to make sure that your mind is doing well, and in fact, that your mental health is doing very, very well, is to get a lot of good exercise. It's actually something the South Korean schools are picking up on quite a bit. They've actually enhance the school day by 1 or 2 hours or so, or planning to do that in the near future. But it's not 1 or 2 days of 1 or 2 hours of class. It's 1 or 2 days of phys ed, of gym, of recess, of getting that blood flowing, of making it so that students have a good, solid physical strength to complement their mental health here. Also schedule some free time for yourself, and also make sure that you get some good sleep in. I'll let you know something, and this might make me look like a bit of a nerd right now, but I actually am usually in bed by 9:30, 10 o'clock. It's pretty common that I do that. It's usually 9 o'clock, screens are off, because that light that comes at you on this screen that you're looking at me on tends to give a cue to your brain that it's not time to sleep, that this is a time to be up and about, and it's daytime, it's not time to hibernate, and so that will tend more so for some people than others, but try to see if this is true for you, that your brain tends to respond to that quite a bit. And if so, make sure that you're turning off screens maybe an hour before bedtime, and that's essentially what I do. 9 o'clock, screens are off, even if it means cutting in half an episode of something on television and coming back to it later, and then I'm in bed reading, so that I'm sort of quieting down. I might pull up something on my phone to listen to, not to watch, to listen to. So that's part of what makes it so that I get enough good sleep. And if you don't mind me talking about this, I'm sure you've heard in health class that your body is going through all of these changes right now. And these changes are things that are pretty important and pretty revolutionary for you. What I don't think is discussed enough is that those changes actually require that you get more sleep than adults, believe it or not. There's a reason why Saturday mornings are sleeping until 11 o'clock, and during summer times you're sleeping until noon or 1 p.m. That's actually biological. There's a reason for that. Your body's actually trying to give you the rest that you need to do the things that teenage bodies need to do right now. So there is a biological reason why that's happening. So I know for most adults, they need about 8 hours of sleep per night. It's actually closer to 9 or 10 for teenagers. So just keep that in mind as you're going through some of these things. I know that there's always the temptation to stay up and binge watch something on whatever, but try to avoid that temptation as much as possible, especially during weekdays. And so hopefully that's helpful there. Also, when you're online here, you're aware of we've got these online class discussions that we're going to be having here, and so it's probably important for us to talk about some of the online forum etiquette that I expect from you as we're coming together for these Zoom meetings. First of all, keep yourself focused on class. Do not multitask. Do not try to do that. The temptation, I know how it's going to be. The temptation is going to be to watch this and then also pull up YouTube, to watch this and pull up Hulu, to watch this and pull up CBS All Access or Netflix or Facebook or a chat room or some game in which you're fighting the Python queen of the in the cave of such and such using the amulet of so and so. You can't do all of that and catch math on the side. It just does not work. You will find yourself not succeeding. You will be frustrated. It will be a bad experience for you. So please, please, please don't do that. When it's time for class, it's time for class. And actually, when you're working on an assignment for trigonometry, you need to also not be multitasking there either. That's a time in which you are focused. Maybe have some music playing in the background, that's okay. It should be music that doesn't have any lyrics to it, because when you listen to music with lyrics, with singing in it, your brain has to do two things at once. It has to tune out all of the verbiage that's in the song that it doesn't want to focus on, and it has to try to tune into the words that are part of the lecture and part of the discussion that we're having here. So don't make things extra hard on your brain. Make it so that you're just listening to music that's instrumental, something that perhaps gives you a sense of calm, perhaps something that gives you a sense of energy, but does not interfere with what's going on in class. And also along those lines, keep yourself away from home distractions as well. Excuse me. It's allergies, believe me. It's allergies, not what you, yeah, it's not that. So a class in progress, do not disturb sign up on your office door, your bedroom door, wherever it is that you're getting this work done. That can be useful to try and keep brothers and sisters, even letting parents know that you're this is a time in which you're working hard, and so keep that in mind. Also, I'm thinking in terms of how we're going to be conducting ourselves during the Zoom sessions. I'd like for you to keep yourself muted and make it so that you're either listening to what's going on. If you've got questions, go ahead and type that into the chat box that's on the right-hand side, and I'll be continually monitoring that chat box to address any and all questions that you might have. But please feel free to ask those questions. I don't want this to be just a lecture in which you sit there and try to absorb everything. I do want this to be as interactive as possible, and so please make use of that chat box. And in fact, this is actually part of a PowerPoint that you can download from D2L, and one of the slides there is this class in progress slide, which if you want to, you can print off and paste on your outside door here to let people know that this is a time in which you need to be basically left alone so that you can get stuff done. The grading in the class is exactly the same as it was before. Exams, final exam, 50% and 20%. The homework and participation are still at 15%, and the letter grades are still on the same scale of 90s being A's, 80s being B's, and so on. However, we're having to do homework and participation slightly differently. I haven't actually figured out yet exactly how we're going to be doing exams, so I'll talk about that as time goes on here. But here's how we're going to be doing homework. I've actually talked about this a little bit before. It will be the same homeworks out of the same book that we were working on before, but the handouts that I gave you for homework will now be available as a PDF on D2L. They were actually always available as a PDF on D2L. It's just that that's the only place you'll be able to get them now. And again, it's due at midnight of the module due date. You can submit your homework. I wanted to make it so that there were multiple venues by which you could submit your homework. You can do this via a Word or Excel document that you email to me. It can be a Google Doc or a Google Sheet in which you would email the link to that to me so that I can pull that up. For some of these things, it's there's a lot of equations involved in trigonometry in particular, and so that's probably not the best way to do it. I'm just making these options available to all my classes at ECA. For you in trigonometry, it's probably going to be easiest for you to create some written homework, pencil and paper, and then either scan that to a PDF so you can email it to me, or what probably is going to be necessary for many of you, take a picture of it on your phone. Take a good picture of it on your phone. Don't, just kind of put something up there that, sort of is kind of askew and doesn't really include all this. Make sure it's a good, solid photograph, and then email that photograph to me. I've mentioned to you that in addition to that, there's also going to be a homework quiz. Let me get myself out of the way there so you can see it. There's going to be a homework quiz. This will involve submitting answers to up to 4 problems. These will be even problems, so these will be problems that you don't know the answer to, but they'll be from the same problem set, and you'll be submitting that through a Google form. And of course, the homework quiz is also due at midnight of the module due date. Lastly, your participation grade. How in the world do I grade participation when everybody's online? Well, here are the two things I'm looking for. The first is that with each one of our Zoom meetings, you have a visible presence. I want to see your window up there showing that you've logged in, that you're present there, and I want to make sure that you're there fully present. And the way that I check that is you must ask at least one relevant math-related question in the chat box at some point during class. So that's nice because I know there's about 20, 23 people in the class or so. It'd be pretty hard for everybody to ask a question get a question in verbally during a half-hour slot there, but you certainly all can put in a question in the chat box. I'll be monitoring that, of course, and I'll be doing my best to try and answer as many of them as I possibly can, but you are expected to be present and present fully when it is that we're having class. And the way that I watch that and try to measure that, the best way I know to do that is to simply require you to ask a good question in the chat box with each one of our class periods here. Lastly, just be aware I'm missing all of you, thinking about you very, very much. Be well during this time. Everything's eventually going to be okay. The economy is going to come back. People will go back to work. Things will return to normal. So take care of yourself, take care of your mental health as well as your physical health, and a good way to do that is to make sure that you're getting plenty of sleep and exercise. Let me know if you're having any technical problems getting into Zoom or downloading stuff off of D2L. Also, let me know if you've tested positive for COVID-19. I'll want to sort of keep you in my thoughts as you're doing that, and I'll be frankly somewhat curious as to what the symptoms are like and what it is that you're going through. So let's just want to be aware of how you're doing and how things are going. On Monday, March 30th, I'm going to have a verifying trigonometric identities video up there by then. So be watching that, taking notes on the activity sheet that you'll also download. And let me get myself out of the way here so you can see the rest of this. You're going to have an activity sheet to download and have that available for Tuesday's in-class discussion. Also download and print the assignment sheet and do on it what you can. And have the link handy for my Zoom meeting and click on it a few minutes before class on Tuesday. So apart from that, just know that we're all in this together, just like the video there from High School Musical was intended to illustrate. And I just am thinking about you an awful lot, and I wish you well, both now, over the weekend, and for the next few weeks. I'll see you soon.